Batman Caped Crusader, so far, in my opinion, has definitely been a huge disappointment, with 4 out of 5 of the episodes that I have reviewed so far not being the greatest, just being totally honest, but I always want to be as objective as possible and go into everything looking for the positives because, again, I am a huge DC fan, huge Batman fan, so anything that is about Batman, I am objectively going to want to like. However, I will not solely like it just because it has the title of Batman. Beware the Batman is definitely a great example of that. I absolutely hate that show. That being said, episode 6 of Batman Caped Crusader definitely subverted all of my expectations. And that brings me to the topic of the video, because today we're talking Batman Caped Crusader, episode 6, breakdown and review. But before we get into anything, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. Alright, Batman Caped Crusader, episode 6. This one introduces us to Gentleman Ghost, and honestly, he was a really cool villain. He is someone that we really haven't seen in any animated project, and definitely no live action project up to this point. The only time that I can think of him actually appearing in any type of a project was in the DCAU, Justice League Unlimited. However, it was only once, and it was a very brief cameo. He wasn't even the main villain. He was the villain at the very beginning of an episode, and once he was stopped, the main part of the episode then started. So we've never had a story that centered around the character of Gentleman Ghost. So right off the bat, it had me very intrigued, had me very interested, and I think what this episode did best was having it focus on Batman. And yes, I know that sounds like a crazy concept, considering this is a show about Batman. So, Batman being the main character of the episode should go without saying, right? Well, no. Up to this point, we've realistically only had 2 or 3 episodes that really focused on Batman as a character. And even then, a lot of the spotlight gets shifted to other characters in the show. Whereas this one really did focus on Batman, Bruce Wayne, and Alfred. Their relationship, their dynamic, and that was really cool to see. So first and foremost, I am going to get into all of the good with this episode. Then I will go over some of the bad, because although I did enjoy it overall, it was not perfect. So that being said, some of the things I really did like, every aspect of Gentleman Ghost, I really enjoyed. Every time he was on screen, I really enjoyed it. And them painting him as a character who is the opposite of Robin Hood, who instead of stealing from the rich and giving to the poor, he steals from the poor and gives to himself. And we find out that he is genuinely a ghost. That was one thing that I had somewhat of an expectation of going into this episode, that it would be revealed to be someone in just a mask, pretending to be this character, this person of the Gentleman Ghost, and not really be a ghost. But then that would have gave us a lot of issues in the episode, because there are multiple times where only a ghost, being the main antagonist, would have explained what happened. So I'm really happy that they did dive deep into that and go full force into the aspect of Batman going up against a fantastical enemy. That's something that so far in this particular show, they really haven't explored, because pretty much every one of the villains that we have seen Batman go up against up to this point have been pretty grounded, and we could see in a live action capacity even appear in the Matt Reeves universe. Whereas the character of Gentleman Ghost absolutely, in my opinion, would not fit in that type of a universe. So that's why I say them going into the fantastical in animation, especially in Batman Caped Crusader, was a really great choice in my opinion. And not only that, but having Batman have to come to terms with that, not believing in the existence of ghosts, not believing in the paranormal, and Alfred being the one to have to explain to him and get him to come around to considering that maybe, just maybe, this enemy does have something paranormal about him. And that is revealed later on, that he is indeed a ghost. And that was really cool. The combat and the action in this episode were also really cool. And I think part of that was attributed to it being an actual ghost. This isn't Batman going up against a normal person under the mask. It is him going up against something supernatural. So you see, although he is trying to fight this enemy, he's failing a lot of the time, so much so that one of his punches somewhat lands, but when it does, his hand freezes. And this is what truly makes Batman start to consider that this enemy could actually be something paranormal. And that's something really cool. I know a lot of Batman fans love when they dive into the more paranormal or the more fantastical. One of the examples of this is the movie Batman vs. Dracula. And to me, that is one of the best Batman movies we've gotten. They dive into the fantastical. And even in that movie, Batman has to come to terms with the fact that the paranormal and the fantastical is something that could exist. And that's something we see him have to accept throughout the movie. And same with this episode. He goes from not accepting it all to doing research on it, doing research on the past, finding out that this person was hanged in the past for his crimes, and now he's come back with a vengeance, with a vendetta against the poor people of Gotham, the people he views as below him. So all of that was really cool. Everything around Gentleman Ghost was really cool. They even fit Lucius Fox into it a little bit. Again, I've said this before, I still find it a little weird that Lucius Fox is just a lawyer for Bruce Wayne. I like it a little bit more when he's actually either in charge of Wayne Enterprises or at the very least a high-ranking executive at Wayne Enterprises, and even sometimes helps Batman with his technology. However, how they're doing it in this universe, I'm starting to have an issue with less and less, because I am enjoying the dynamic and the conversations that Lucius Fox has with Bruce Wayne. And even in this episode, they mentioned some funds that Bruce has on the side, and Lucius wants to look at them. But he also mentions that he knows Bruce doesn't want him to, so he won't dive into it any deeper. Again, that's a really small detail and a really small thing that they decided to explain. However, it does leave the opportunity to explore that in the future and maybe have Lucius Fox be curious about it and have him potentially find out that Bruce Wayne is indeed Batman. That would be a really cool route to explore in the future. Some of the other things that I really did enjoy in this episode was all the stuff with Harvey Dent. We obviously know that Harvey is trying to become mayor, and with the current mayor being corrupt, we thought he was going to be a shoo-in for mayor. However, unfortunately, that is not the case. It seems that a lot of the working people, for whatever reason, are not on the side of Harvey Dent. A lot of people are even pulling their funding from Harvey Dent. So this leads to Harvey needing to do a couple more extreme things to get back on track. However, before he can really do any of that, he gets a visit, and that is from none other than Rupert Thorne. And as we know, the current mayor is already in the pocket of Rupert Thorne. And I actually really like this conversation between Harvey Dent and Rupert Thorne, because it tells us a lot. First and foremost, it tells us that not only does Harvey Dent know that the current mayor is in the pocket of Rupert Thorne, but virtually everyone in Gotham knows this, and they're still more likely to side with the current mayor, even knowing that he's corrupt. Maybe not every single person knows that he is corrupt, but a vast majority of the population of Gotham definitely knows or has some idea that he has some connection to Rupert Thorne, and yet he is still in the lead of this mayoral race. And it's in this moment that Rupert Thorne actually reaches out and offers an olive branch to Harvey Dent, and he says that he wants to support his campaign. And it's in this moment that Harvey Dent brings up the fact that the current mayor is already in his pocket. So what's the use of that? And then we get a really cool line from Rupert Thorne saying, "In roulette, I don't just bet on red, I bet on red and black. That way, no matter what, I am the winner." And just seeing that he has that mentality to always be a winner and always want to come out on top is really cool. And he is trying to get Harvey Dent in his pocket. Even though he realizes that Harvey probably by this point won't win, he just wants to ensure that no matter what, he will be covered and his criminal enterprise will not be affected no matter who comes into power. So that does give us a little bit more context for who this person of Rupert Thorne truly is, because up to this point, he hasn't been in the show that much. He's been more of a background character or a character that we just hear mentioned versus actually being on screen. However, I feel like they are definitely going to have him in it more and more, especially with what happens a little bit later, and I'll get right into that because I really enjoyed that too. Harvey Dent's campaign does not go well. He essentially tells tells Rupert Thorne to F off, he leaves, and then he tries to save his campaign. And the way he does this is trying to relate to the everyday person in Gotham. He decides to ride the public transportation, takes a bunch of photographers with him. They capture moments of him engaging with the people of Gotham. However, this is not something that ends well for Harvey Dent and his campaign, because guess who shows up? The Gentleman Ghost, and he does end up robbing everyone that is, aside from Harvey Dent. Now, one thing I did like about this moment, Harvey Dent did try to save everyone, and he did try to offer all of his money in return for letting everyone else go. That shows us that although we do know what route this character is going to go down in the future, obviously we do know he does become Two-Face at some point and goes down a pretty dark path. We do know in his heart and at his core, he is a good person, and he does truly care about the people of Gotham. He wasn't just doing this and offering this for the publicity. He really truly did care about the people of Gotham. He wanted them to be safe. And not only that, he didn't want them to be in a financial hole because of this. So that's why he was offering what he had, because he knew he had more to offer. However, unfortunately, as I mentioned before, Gentleman Ghost has no interest in anyone that has money, which doesn't really make sense, because why would you not want more money? But again, it's the principle, because he is truly a ghost. So he is only interested in stealing from the poor, and he states that. And that's why he leaves without actually robbing Harvey Dent. This creates a snowball effect that the press does then roll with, and they chastise Harvey Dent for, which shows you how corrupt even the newspapers are in this universe, because not one of them reported on Harvey Dent offering up his money, offering up himself in order to protect all of these people. No, all they focused on was the fact that all of those people got robbed and Harvey Dent did not. None of them focused on the fact that Gentleman Ghost has been able to do this under the watch of the current mayor. No, they're painting it as if this is somehow Harvey Dent's fault. And we see the ramifications of that. Nearly everyone pulls their funding from Harvey Dent's campaign. So much so that his assistant says the war chest is empty, meaning they no longer have any funds to fund his campaign. And it is in this moment at the end of the episode that we do see Harvey Dent make the phone call to Rupert Thorne and all but accept that olive branch that was offered in the beginning of the episode. Now again, this is going to be something they are going to show us probably in the next few episodes, because it does end literally with him making that phone call. So that's something that I am really excited to see explored. One of the other things that I did enjoy about this episode is something that I have been wanting from this entire series, and that is the relationship between Bruce Wayne and Alfred. I have had a major issue with their lackluster dynamic and the bond that realistically to me did not exist. They seemed very, very distant from each other. However, in this episode, they're working very closely together. So much so, at the very end of the episode, Alfred is there helping Batman do the ritual to get rid of the Gentleman Ghost. Now, they threw something in there about Alfred and his noble blood, so that was a cool nod, because I know some comic runs do have him hailing from a noble family. So that was pretty cool. And to me, one of the coolest moments was when they are defeating Gentleman Ghost and they finish the ritual. However, it is not totally finished. And before they are able to fully finish the ritual, Gentleman Ghost does go to attack Batman. Alfred jumps right in front of him and has his essence essentially sucked into Alfred. And then we do see Alfred have to fight Batman. And in this moment, you see Alfred trying to struggle and trying to take control back. And he says to Batman, "You need to kill me. Do it while I'm still a little bit in control." And in this moment, Batman refuses and says that he needs him to finish this mission. He can't do any of this without him. So although we knew that Batman and Alfred obviously have some type of bond, it was cool to see and very satisfying to see this actually said and shown on screen, because again, so far, their relationship has seemed pretty cold towards one another up until this point. So the fact that Alfred was willing to die in this moment simply to save Batman definitely was something that I was excited to see. And then we had something really interesting that Gentleman Ghost did say while he had possessed Alfred, and that was that Alfred had a deep secret that he was not only keeping from Gentleman Ghost, but a secret he was keeping from Bruce Wayne. There are a couple theories I have as to what this could be. However, I feel like the most obvious one and the most likely secret this could be is the fact that he doesn't want Bruce to be Batman, and that he instead wants Batman to move on and have an actual life, versus having this life that is tied to Batman that he knows in the end will not bring him any happiness. However, I feel like that is something we are going to have revealed at some point, hopefully during this season. That being said, that is essentially all I have for the positives with this episode. As for the negatives, I truly can't think of any negative outside of some very small exchanges. And those small exchanges do happen between Alfred and Bruce, but they are very minor, and the instances I'm talking about is for some reason Bruce still calls Alfred Pennyworth, and that just bugs me for some reason. Why are you not calling him Alfred? This is not only your butler, but it's the person you are absolutely the closest to, and you can't even say his first name. You address him as Pennyworth. That is the most asinine thing, and I'm hoping they change that. Again, if they do go down a route of the two of them becoming closer and growing their bond, and that being a shift to him calling him Pennyworth and now calling him Alfred, that would be something that I would then take all these statements back, and I would actually really like it. However, we do not know if that is the route they're going to go. Another moment I really did not like was when Lucius Fox stated to Bruce that, yeah, I treat him like I would treat anyone else. I'm very nice to the hired help. You should do the same. Or some type of comment insinuating Bruce doesn't treat Alfred like family. He treats him like a servant, like hired help. And to me, I take huge issue with this. Not the fact that Lucius said this, the fact that the writers felt the need to have Lucius say this. Not because it's Lucius saying it, because it is reality. The fact that they truly have Bruce Wayne treating Alfred like a servant absolutely blows my mind, and reminds me of the moment that Damian Wayne from the Son of Batman movie tries treating Alfred like a servant, and Batman snaps back at him and says Alfred is family. He's not the help. He's not a servant. He is family. That is something that I am really hoping they do correct as this series goes on. However, that is essentially all I have for this episode. All in all, I really did enjoy it. This is probably my second favorite episode of the series so far. But let me know what all of you think. Do you like how distant they are making Alfred and Bruce seem in this show? And do you agree that them diving more into the fantastical elements is a really cool aspect of Batman that you want to see explored? Let me know in the comments below. And while you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And I'll see all of you in the next video. Goodbye.